Today, I've been continuously generating stylized videos, and I just can't stop. Previously, I rarely generated stylized videos, mainly focusing on realistic characters or landscapes. The reason is my vocabulary was quite limited. As a programmer, the styles I could essentially master were limited to Ghibli, Makoto Shinkai, and at most Disney, that's generally the situation. Therefore, when generating stylized videos, the output effects were quite limited, as, if we want to generate a stylized video, we need two key elements. The first is a rich vocabulary, understanding various styles, and then using text-to-video methods to generate various stylized videos. The other way is to have various reference images. Then, by using an image-to-video method, you can also generate pretty good stylized videos. Which method am I using? Now, I'm using the second method. The workflow I'm using is very simple. It's a 1-to-2 image-to-video. Workflow, the basic form of this workflow, looks like we provide an image, then we use 1-to-2 feet, seconds high, noise, low noise models to perform image-to-video generation. Let's look at the generated effect. It's fantastic. The overall feel and the character's movements are great within this workflow. We'll teach you a small trick that is in this section. We don't need to write very personalized prompt words. You can just write some general ones. For example, the prompt I'm using here is a beautiful dynamic motion. This is to give her very dynamic movements. You'll find that every generated video has very high quality. Next, let's talk about the question everyone cares about. How was this image generated for this? We used the technique we discussed before called a C0. This is a Biden stylized generation model. Its base model is Flux. Its core function is that given an image, it can generate similar styles of images by imitating it. What's different about the USO we're talking about today? It has already gained native support within ComfyUI's workflow. This also demonstrates the importance of this model. Today, Comfy published a blog post stating that USO has gained native support within Comfy's workflow. It provides a simple explanation of the model, mainly supporting three functions. The first is subject generation, the second is style generation, and the third combines the first two, meaning it has both subject and style references. It also mentions that it supports multiple styles, which we demonstrated when discussing the native US. Of course, the information we saw in this blog post is relatively sparse below it. There's a very detailed documentation link that you can open. This document contains a lot more content, including model downloads, workflow sections, and workflow execution steps. First, let's look at this. If you want to use USO and ComfyUI, the first thing you need to do is update Comfy to the latest version below, are the model downloads. We first need to download a Flux model. Everyone should have this note that its format is not a diffusion model, it's a checkpoint, meaning it has built-in V and clip. Additionally, we need to download a LoRa. The download link is here. We also need to load a model patch, which is specific to ASO. This is the patch address for its visual model. We need to provide it separately. This is a very excellent visual model developed by Google, which we have actually used before. After all models are downloaded, please follow this directory structure for deployment. We need to place Flux in the checkpoint directory. Please do not put it in the diffusion model directory. It goes in the checkpoint directory. The LoRa should be placed in the LoRa's directory, and the patch file goes into the model patches directory. Our visual encoder goes into Clip Vision. Below is the workflow for workflow downloads. We can still download it from here. It also includes the execution steps. When you upload this example workflow into your ComfyUI, you will see a workflow structure. Like this, it has two parts. One at the bottom is completely bypassed, and the one at the top is usable. What's the difference between these two? The workflow at the bottom only performs style reference generation and does not have subject-driven functionality. The one at the top has both subject-driven functionality and style reference functionality. Let's focus on this workflow first and briefly analyze it. First, you should note that for model downloads, we are no longer using a 3-component model, it's actually a 4-component model. First, for the main model, we load FluxDev, which is in the FB8 format. It has the main model clip and V built in. Then we need to load the LoRa and also load this patch. After that, we need to load the visual model. These are all things we downloaded beforehand. Then let's look. Here's a subject image. This means the character you generate will be based on this image. Here we'll use a node that primarily performs scaling as a reference. It doesn't need to be scaled too large. A 5. 12 resolution is sufficient. However, there's a special case mentioned here. If your reference image only contains a person's head and no other specific information, then to enhance accuracy, you can set the resolution larger, for example to 1024. Once you have this image, pay attention. How do we use it? How is object reference achieved? The key is this node called AV-encode. Essentially, it encodes it into a latent space. Then we have a new node, here notice called USO reference condition. Calling it a node is actually not entirely appropriate. Why? Because if you look, it has an icon like this. It's actually not a node, it's a graph. What's a graph? We can click this to open it, although it's called USO reference conditioning. It's not something new. It's composed of these three things. First are flux guidance, then below that, there's flux context. Multi-reference latent method. This is also an old node from before. However, in its type section, it has added UXO and UNIO. What's the relationship between UXO and USO? Note that UXO is the research and development team of USO, that is, there's a team within ByteDance called UXO and the product they developed is called USO. It's a bit of a tongue twister, but don't worry about it. And then there's something called reference latent. So it's composed of these three nodes. This is a new feature added in ComfyUI called subgraphs. This makes the entire workflow look much more organized, therefore through it, a new conditional can be generated. Of course, another input for this is our prompt words. Then the original text, prompt words after passing through this node, will generate a new positive condition, and our negative condition is actually an empty condition. Then let's look at the second group. The second group is for reference generation. Here, we'll have an image that will pass through this node called USO style reference. This is also not a new node, it's a subgraph, right? So we can click this icon to see its basic composition. It essentially uses clip vision. In code, this node is new. It's called USO style reference. We can input the main model, the model patch, and our visual encoder. Then it generates a new model. This model will then be our main sampling model. We've already covered positive and negative. The latent image here is empty. The resolution I've set here is 1280 by 720. This resolution doesn't have much to do with these other settings because these are all reference images, right? You can set it to whatever you want. Then for sampling, it's relatively simple and standard. Pay attention to the 20-step sampling. CFG is 10, using an Euler sampler and a simple scheduler. After decoding, we will get this image, which is very beautiful. Alright, next, let's give you a demonstration. The subject image can be changed to any you like here. I'm using a consistent character. For example, if I change it to a side view, image take a look, then here, choose a style image, for example. Let's pick this one, then let's execute it. Take a look, isn't it? Beautiful. Of course you can change to others. Like this one, take a look, the style is completely different. Now then, let's find some more strongly stylized ones. Like this, the 3D texture is very prominent. Let's change another one, for example. This one, this is a pencil drawing. Let's look at the effect. The style capture is extremely accurate. Next, let's talk about the differences between these two workflows. The difference is the absence of this chain. We can see that there's style reference here, but this positive condition has not been corrected by the subject reference. This condition goes directly into our sampling node, whereas here it passes through our subject reference node for correction before entering our positive condition. This is one of the differences. Take a look. As long as you have such a style image, you can generate a very excellent subject. Notice how skillfully I wrote this. A girl with a charming smile in a sea of flowers with a summer sky. That's the scene. Notice that my prompt doesn't include any actions. I didn't write sitting, standing, or anything like that. I just said she's there. For example, if I now have an image like this and we generate it, she is sitting. If we change two different images here, her posture is basically consistent with the reference image. Take a look. The perspective is also similar. Let's try this one again. Two people appear. There might be a slight issue there. Let's run it again. This time, it's fine. If you wish for a richer expression, you can add specific actions. For example, running. Let's see. It feels very dynamic, right? We can even have her riding a bicycle. Take a look, isn't it? Beautiful. So you'll find its overall performance is quite stable. Many people notice there's another group behind. What's that for? because we know it can do mixed styles, so you can enable this group as well. Then here we upload another style, for example Van Gogh's Starry Night. Then let's execute it. You'll find it now has that Van Gogh feeling, and the deformation also looks similar, right? Then I'll remove the action. For now, take a look. This is very beautiful. You can mix any two styles, but sometimes it might not be particularly prominent. Like this Van Gogh Starry Night. Its entire style is very strong right now. If we upload something else, for example, this one. This is actually also an oil painting. Feel, but it's very beautiful and very delicate. It's a bit like traditional Chinese meticulous painting. Take a look, it now has that meticulous painting feel, right? This style is very unique. Now if we upload something like this, which looks a bit like a charcoal drawing, then we generate it. Again, this style is also very prominent. Of course, the mixing of styles is one function of this node. In fact, it has another trick. What is style strengthening? That is, you upload two identical images here. For example, both of these are. Then we generate. This is style strengthening. The effect it produces is much better than using a single style reference image. Take a look. It's even more beautiful, right? Let's try another one. For example, this, of course, I don't know what this style is called. Take a look, isn't it? Very similar to this style. Everyone please note that in all the demonstrations I've shown you here, I haven't done subject generation, because the official workflow also didn't do subject-driven generation, as that effect is indeed not very good. That is, we can skip style reference and directly do subject generation. We can demonstrate one for you, that is, we now skip this style reference. Take a look, this feeling is still good, but the consistency is not that strong. Then we can add actions to it. For example, we also write riding a bike, then we execute it again. Take a look, the proportion is indeed quite distorted with a bit of a big head. Right, so regarding its subject reference, you can just get a feel for it. Firstly, the person might not look exactly the same. Secondly, there might be issues with distorted proportions. If we choose a closer perspective, here this problem might be even more prominent. Take a look, the same issue. A big head proportions are a bit off. Therefore, as much as possible, just use it for style, combined with subject. As for doing subject consistency alone, just forget it. You might find that using fiber image could be better. Alright, that's all for today. Follow me to become someone who understands AI.